Hello students, good morning everyone. So far we have completed about different concepts, types and methods practices in organic farming. Today we are going to see about soil and crop management in organic farming. Along with that, intercropping, companion cropping, crop rotation, green manures, cover crops and mulching in this organic farming. Soil and crop management in organic farming. The name itself resembles nothing but management in organic farming. What were the methods you are going to follow in managing the organic farming related to soil and crops? If we think about the soil, what was the need of soil in crop management? It means crop production. We will say that soil is an heart of agriculture because soil provides numerous number of nutrients to the crop and it helps in crop growth and development. Soil is only the basic need for crop production, crop growth. Okay, here the soil will be having numerous number of nutrients in that, so that we are going to preserve that and we are going to sustain that for many years. For that, this organic farming is going to be helpful in number of ways. Okay, here we are going to see about how to manage the soil fertility and soil in this organic farming. Managing soil fertility in organic farming systems requires a different approach from that using in conventional farming systems. The basic difference between the conventional farming and this organic farming is, at present time we can get more benefits if we follow the conventional methods, but we cannot sustain that for a longer time. But in organic farming it was going to be useful for many years, many generations also. We can sustain that for our future generations, so that this organic farming is most useful and we have to follow without delay, so that nutrients in synthetic fertilizers are highly soluble, so nutrient availability is quite predictable and nutrients are quickly available to the plants. But in organic farming it takes some time, but even though it gives good effects in crop growth and development, they do not require biological process to make them available, and they do not enhance the biological health of the soil. In fact, several synthetic fertilizers degrade soil by drying it out, making it acidic or saline. As you have seen here, many different types of effects, it means defects were there if we use the conventional methods by using synthetic fertilizers to develop the nutrients in the soil. Excluding that, we are going to promote this organic farming by different ways, which is different from these conventional systems. By promoting the decomposition of plant and animal residues to make nutrients from them available to the plants. Managing soil fertility with biologically created inputs ensures that organic production is a dynamic biological process. You can see here. Okay. First, many organic inputs such as cover crops, crop residues, manures and compost are added to the soil for reasons other than fertility management, but they contribute to the pool of nutrients in the soil. And the second thing, most organic materials including compost and manure have only a small component of soluble nutrients. Most of the nutrients in that contents must be transformed through biological process before they become available to plants. In synthetic fertilizers, we are going to put out all the fertilizers directly by mixing with any of the water or any of the substances or any of the amendments available. But in this organic farming, the products which you are going to use, it means compost, cover crops, any of the raw material present, that we cannot use directly as it cannot be available to the plants directly. Only after undergoing decomposition and some other biological process, they will form into available forms. Then only the plants can consume all the nutrients available in that. An organic producer needs to account for each of these nutrient sources to determine current and future nutrient availability, as well as view nutrient management as but one component of integrated crop and soil management plan. We can use this organic management as integrated management. Okay, if we imagine or if we go through the soil nutrients, there we can see the nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium are the major nutrients that will be helpful for the plant's growth and development, both in vegetative and reproductive growth. If these nutrients are not available in soil for the up to its extent level, then the plant cannot grow highly. It means it cannot give good yield. So that we have to maintain both nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium and micronutrients too. Let's see how was the nitrogen management can be done in this organic farming. Naturally, nitrogen is often the most limiting nutrients to efficient and profitable organic production. Most of the organic growers are limited to organic sources of nitrogen or those derived from natural processes. And also, soil organic matter is the backbone of nitrogen supply in organic production, and cultural practices to manipulate nitrogen start with building soil organic matter. Here, only the cultural practices to manipulate nitrogen start with building soil organic matter. Other important potential sources of nitrogen include fixed nitrogen from legumes, include as cover or rotation crop. By using leguminous crop, you can fix the nitrogen in that soil. Compost produced from on-farm or off-farm materials, manures from on-farm or off-farm sources, and purchase organic fertilizers will help in nitrogen management. Of them, let's see organic sources of nitrogen. Most of the organic farms, the main source of organic nitrogen is atmospheric nitrogen fixed by legumes, as I said before. In a well-designed crop rotation, plow downs of legume green crops and forage legumes can provide all the nitrogen required to grow cash crops. Every crop doesn't need all the nitrogen requirement which will be fixed by that crop. For suppose leguminous crops will be having more amount of nitrogen in that nodules, and that nodules is going to be fixed that nitrogen into the soil, and that nitrogen fixed will be the amount that fixed by the previous legume crops will be used by the successive crop which is going to be next crop. Okay, it is nothing but the nitrogen fixation will be done by legume crops. Although raw manures contains more available nitrogen than compost manure, composted manure is preferred for several reasons. Raw manure cannot be used directly as it contains many of the effects on the soil and as well as the crop production. Let's see some of the organic sources here. Soil organic matter and humus. How it's going to be helpful in fixing nitrogen. Organic growers agreed to a soil building program to maintain or enhance soil organic matter as part of the organic certification requirements. And soil organic matter is one important source of nitrogen for organic production. Yes, you are going to grow some completely depending upon the organic sources, then only the organic certification committee will certify that your complete whole farm is completely done by organic sources. In this certification, nitrogen plays important role as it increases the organic matter fixation. As previously mentioned, the soil organic matter is divided into active and stable fractions. The stable fraction consists in large part of the humus or heavy fraction and affects overall physical and chemical properties in soil. Most of high CN ratio, carbon nitrogen ratio crop residues such as straw or corn stalks decompose slowly on incorporation and are more often converted to humus. This humus fixes the nitrogen stable and will helpful in increasing the soil organic matter. Soil organic matter plays important role in organic certification, so that we have to increase the soil organic matter through many of the straw materials of corn stalks or any of the raw materials that can be decomposed and converted into the humus. After that, green manure crops. Green manure crops refer specifically to cover crops, okay, grown to supply nitrogen, and cover crops or also some of the green manure crops will be similar. So that to supply nitrogen and increase the soil organic matter, cover crops are similar to green crops but are usually grown to conserve topsoil, prevent soil erosion, improve soil structure, increase organic matter, and capture whole nutrients during the non-growing season. For example, green manure crops include grass mixtures and legume plants. Some of the most commonly used are annual ryegrass, vetch, clover, pea crop, winter wheat, and alfalfa. These are the some of our green manure crops with grass mixtures. As a complement to nitrogen from soil organic matter, a vigorous green manure crop may be the most economical organic source of additional early season nitrogen for succeeding crop. Understood? In crop production area with a mild climate, green manure crops are widely used in organic farming system because they grow during the fall, winter, and early spring and can develop sustainable biomass. This is about the green manure crops in fixing the nitrogen. Next, manures. Fresh non-composted manures will generally have higher nitrogen content than composted manure. Note this point that fresh and non-composted manure will be generally having higher nitrogen content than composted manure. However, the use of composted manure will contribute more to the organic matter content of the soil. The nitrogen in manure is in two forms: the organic form, which releases slowly, and the inorganic form, ammonium and nitrates, which are immediately available, while organic nitrogen, that is more stable and slowly released. Okay, there were two different forms in this. One is organic form and another is inorganic form. Organic form will be available in the fresh content. Inorganic form will be available in the form of ammonia and nitrate and nitrites, which will be available immediately. Next one is about compost in nitrogen fixation. The nitrogen content of compost will vary according to the source material and how it is composted. The preparation process also affects the availability of nitrogen. In general, nitrogen in the form of ammonium or nitrate is low in compost. Okay, the majority of the nitrogen in finished compost, usually over about 90%, has been incorporated into the organic compounds that are resistant to decomposition. Mineralization rates from compost application are relatively low, and compost is usually a poor short-term source of nitrogen. It roughly estimates that only about 50% of the nitrogen in compost will become available in the first year following incorporation. If you are going to incorporate this compost in the fields, in the first year only 15% of that compost is going to be available for the plants. Remaining will be available in the successive years, coming years. Okay. If you are going to see that commercial organic fertilizers, as I said before, these are the organic sources which are available naturally, and commercial organic fertilizers, like many types of dry and liquid commercial organic fertilizers, are available for using certified organic production, which will be list in the NPOP program. Okay, in that list some of the organic fertilizers will be listed. Of them, most of the products are byproducts of fish, livestock, and food and other processing industries. Various single source and blended organic products are available from different fertilizer suppliers and distributors. Some typical examples of organic fertilizer sources include pelleted poultry manure, seabird guano, pelleted seabird guano, and feather meal and blood meal too. These are all the commercial products, okay, to fix the nitrogen in the field. Commercial organic fertilizers are more concentrated nitrogen sources than compost with improved handling, nitrogen placement and nitrogen availability. While listed on the national list as a prohibited non-synthetic sodium nitrate mined from naturally occurring deposits in Chile and Peru, can be used in organic production in accordance with its annotation. After only examination of that field, we are going to use this sodium nitrate, which has also been listed in the NPOP list. Okay. Nitrogen availability. The nitrogen concentration and resulting C/N ratio of the organic materials will affect whether a net release of nitrogen from the organic material will occur during decomposition, known as net nitrogen mineralization. It means whenever we have applied any of the sources of the nitrogen in the field, organic sources, the available nitrogen during that decomposition process is called net nitrogen mineralization, or whether nitrogen from the soil will have to be paid up by soil organisms in order to decompose the organic matter, known as net nitrogen immobilization. Okay, the sources which were going to be fixed in that region, in that field, from these organic sources during the decomposition is called net nitrogen mineralization. If not, nitrogen from the soil will have to be used up by the soil organism in order to decompose the organic matter, known as net nitrogen immobilization. Soil microbes readily release the excess nitrogen in a plant available form when organic matter has a low C/N ratio or when nitrogen is in excess. Okay, soil microbes also will helps in releasing this nitrogen whenever there is less amount of C/N ratio in this soil. Not only that synchronizing nitrogen mineralization from soil organic matter, green manures, crop residues and organic amendments to maintain adequate nitrogen availability for crop production is challenging. We cannot change that, because if we are going to patiently, we have to wait in this organic farming, because it takes so much process to get availability of these nutrients into the soil. The rate of nitrogen mineralization from soil organic matter and recently incorporated residues and amendments typically peaks before the crop reaches its maximum rate of nitrogen uptake. This is about nitrogen management, how we are going to manage, and the available sources of nitrogen. And next one is about phosphorus management. Like nitrogen, phosphorus is also going to be fixed with many of the organic sources of that soil. Organic crop production system seeks to improve soil organic matter and biological diversity, which may impact phosphorus cycling and phosphorus uptake by crops. Increases in organic matter will be accompanied by an increase in organic phosphorus pool. Furthermore, not only that, increasing in phosphorus pool, not only that, but managing of green manure crops can increase the availability of soil phosphorus pool, both organic and inorganic, by stimulating the microbial activity and release of root exudates. Organic sources of phosphorus, also for use in organic agriculture, have diverse properties that affect phosphorus availability and management. Some of the common phosphorus sources include soil organic matter, green manure crops, manures, compost and rock phosphate, all of which are mostly frequently used in growing crops. In this soil organic matter and humus, it considered as important source of phosphorus for crops because it fixes the soil organic matter contains variety of organic phosphorus and compounds such as inositol phosphate, nucleic acid and phospholipid. Which were the sources are going to be fixed by soil organic matter? Inositol phosphate, nucleic acid and phospholipid. These compounds must be first converted, or mineralized to inorganic phosphate by soil enzymes before being used for plant growth. These phosphate enzymes are produced by soil microorganisms, mycorrhizal fungi, or excreted by plant root. Okay, from where these products, minerals are going to be produced means it will be produced by soil microorganisms, mycorrhizal fungi, or excreted by the plant root. Some of the green manure crops that fix the phosphorus availability in soil will be some green manure crops accumulate high levels of phosphorus and are thought to increase phosphorus availability to subsequent crops by returning it into the soil in organic form. Some green manure crops can be used excellent host for mycorrhizal fungi, which may allow a great exploitation of the soil phosphorus reserves. In this symbiotic relationship, the plant root provides the energy for the fungi in exchange for improved nutrient uptake and other plant benefits. See how green manures are going to be helpful for greater phosphorus fixation. Not only that, manures and compost also helps in 45 to 70% of manure phosphorus is inorganic. Unlike nitrogen, phosphorus is conserved in the composting process, and depending on the composting process, the water soluble phosphorus of mature compost may not be different from that of organic manure source. Essentially, all inorganic phosphorus is in the orthophosphate form, which is the form taken up by growing plants. This is about manures and compost. Now going to see about colloidal phosphate, how is going to be fixed. Colloidal phosphate, also called soft rock phosphate, consists of clay particles surrounded by natural phosphate. Total phosphate is around 20% and available phosphate about 2 to 3%. It means out of total phosphate only 2 to 3% is going to be available. It only contains about 25% lime and other trace minerals. Colloidal phosphate is often added directly to livestock manure, where the manure acids dissolve much of the total phosphate and the phosphate stabilizes the nitrogen in the manure. Okay, we can add it directly to the livestock manure. From the waste of this livestock, we can add it into that and we can apply into the fields. Rock phosphate from apatite ore has been acidulated or otherwise chemically treated. Okay, this is from apatite ore. This is from apatite ore. We are going to collect that from there. Rock phosphate are usually derived from ancient marine deposits. Synthetic fertilizers such as super or triple superphosphate are made by reaction with sulfuric or phosphoric acid to increase the solubility of the phosphorus in rock phosphates. Okay, if you are going to apply this rock phosphate in synthetic form, we are going to treat it that with different reactions. Okay, but in this organic farming, which does not permit the use of such acidulation process, I said that in synthetic fertilizers we are going to treat that in with many of the acids to get increase the availability soon in the soils, but in organic farming we are not going to permit to use that acidulation phosphate fertilizers, so that it seeks to convert the phosphorus in rock phosphates to crop available forms by using soil biological process only and natural soil weathering process. There is nothing synthetically done in this organic farming rock phosphate. That is about rock phosphate. And now bone meal. Bone meal prepared by grinding animal bones is one of the earliest phosphorus sources used in agriculture. Most commercially available bone meal is steamed to remove any raw animal tissue. Okay, that are going to be the animal bones are being collected and it's going to be powdered and steamed. Okay, the primary phosphorus mineral in bone material is calcium deficient hydroxyapatite, which is more soluble than rock phosphate but much less soluble than conventional phosphorus fertilizers. Okay, but compared to conventional it is less only, but even though it will helpful. Next one is guano. It is most commonly used as a source of nitrogen for plants, but some guano materials are also relatively enriched in phosphorus. Guano is mined from aged deposits of birds or bat excrement in low rainfall environments. Okay, guano is nothing but it is mined from aged deposits of bird or bat excrement. Okay, the drying and aging process changes the chemistry of the phosphorus compared with fresh manures, and definitely there will be a change in that, so that we have to consider the fresh one compared to the old one. Okay, struvite magnesium ammonium phosphate. Struvite magnesium ammonium phosphate is a major phosphorus mineral found in guano. Which is the major phosphorus mineral going to be found in guano? You can, this was important bit also. Struvite, struvit, struvite dissolves slowly in soil. The limited supply and high cost of guano generally restricts its use to small scale applications. This is about the organic phosphorus management by various sources of organic sources. Next, through mycorrhizal fungi. Mycorrhizal fungi are special soil fungus that forms a symbiotic mutualism relationship with plant roots. Okay, in this association both organisms benefit. The fungus takes over the role of plant roots hairs and acts as the extension of root system. The fungus receives carbohydrates or sugars and growth factors from the plant, which in turn receives many benefits including increased nutrient absorption. In this absorption, when a large vigorous network of mycorrhizae hyphae is associated with plant roots, it exponentially expands the reach and surface area of those roots, giving the plant greater access to the nutrients, especially phosphorus and other minor nutrients the soil has to offer. The symbiosis is of course greater for plants because the extra nutrients can fuel better growth and increase resistance to drought and disease. The value of mycorrhizal fungi for supplying phosphorus for crop is most apparent in low phosphorus soils. Even mycorrhizal fungi is also going to be helpful in fixing this phosphorus for the soil into the plants. Okay, and it helps in increasing the phosphorus content in the soil. This is about the phosphorus management. Next, moving to potassium management. Most soils holds large reserves of potassium in the primary and secondary soil minerals, but only a small fraction of the total potassium is in soil is immediately available for the plant uptake. Whatever the mineral is going to be and whatever the nutrient is going to be, immediately it was not going to be formed into available for the for uptaking the nutrients to the plants. There will be a late process, and there was going to be occur biological process in that. The potassium in the soil solution and the exchangeable potassium held on the soil colloids are readily available for plant uptake. As the exchangeable potassium is depleted, it can be replenished by the reserves of non-exchangeable potassium, but this is a slow process that is generally not rapid enough to satisfy crop requirements. Okay. Next, the organic sources of potassium, as like before: soil organic matter, manure and compost, potassium sulfate, lignite and gluconate. These are the organic sources which helps to increase the potassium in the soil. Soil organic matter, it requires by plants in amount second only to nitrogen. Okay. Plants require potassium compared to nitrogen. So potassium requirement is less only. Unlike nitrogen and phosphorus, potassium is not organically combined in soil organic matter. Different potassium containing minerals such as micas and feldspars, okay, which were the present different potassium containing minerals. What were the minerals that having potassium is mica and feldspar. Therefore, these are the principal sources of potassium in soils. Seeing manure and compost are usually very good sources of available potassium. For most manures and compost, it is generally assumed that the potassium is soluble and that is these can applied on a equal basis with fertilizer potassium recommendations. However, overuse of manure or compost can lead to excessive leads of exchangeable potassium that can interfere with the uptake of calcium and magnesium by crops. However, overuse of manure or compost can lead to excessive levels of exchangeable potassium that also will interfere with the uptake of calcium and magnesium by crops. Okay. Sorry. Potassium sulfate. There are two forms of potassium sulfate on the market. One is derived by reacting sulfuric acid with potassium chloride. It is a good fertilizer but not acceptable in certified organic production. The other is derived from natural sources and it is allowed for organic crop production. So there are two different types of organic potassium sulfate. Okay, one is going to be reacted with sulfuric acid with potassium chloride. It is not going to be used in organic fields. Lagbanite is listed by the Organic Materials Research Institute. Define OMRI. If anybody asks, you can say that Organic Material Research Institute. Okay, it is allowable in certified organic production if it is used in raw crust form without any further refinement or purification. Without adding any of the source to this lagmanite, we can use that in organic forms. Several excellent sources for this approved product are available for use with organic crop production. Next mineral is gluconite. Gluconite is a clay type mineral commonly sold as green sand. Okay, gluconite is nothing but green sand, you can say, which is listed by OMRI. Total potassium oxide content of green sand is around 7%. How much percent is present in that green sand? Total potassium oxide content of green sand is about 7%, but most of the potassium is unavailable. The very slow potassium release rate of green sand is touted to minimize the possibility of plant damage by fertilizer burn. Okay, the very slow potassium release rate of green sand is touted to minimize the possibility of plant damage by fertilizer burn. Okay, if we use more number of fertilizers, there will be burning of the plant. Okay, we are going to reduce that by adding this gluconite to the soil, to the plant. Okay, while the minerals moisture retention may aid soil conditioning. Management of micronutrients. Here you have seen about the major nutrients NPK and how organic sources are going to be helpful in fixing both for all these phosphorus, nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium. Now we are going to see how we can manage the micronutrients. Micronutrients essential to plant include calcium, sulfur, iron, manganese, boron, copper, zinc, molybdenum and nickel. These are all the micronutrients which are required for the plant growth. In a biological active soil with a good cation exchange capacity and balanced pH, micronutrient deficiency are rare. Okay, in soils which were having rich in biological active soil and good cation exchange capacity, there these micronutrient deficiencies will be less. Micronutrient deficiency are most common in sandy soils and in soils with very low levels of organic matter. Let's see the organic sources of micronutrients. Of that, cobalt, copper, iron, manganese, molybdenum, selenium and zinc can be applied to correct a deficiency provided if they are from sulfate, carbonate, oxide and silicate sources. Okay, we can reclaimate that by adding this cobalt, copper. If there is any deficiency of the above, we can add carbonate, sulfate, oxide or silicate sources. Nitrate and chloride forms of these micronutrients are mostly prohibited. Okay, synthetic soluble sources of boron can be applied. Here, for managing these micronutrients, the organic sources, some are chelating agents. Chelating agents are common compounds to which an element in its ionic form can be attached. Micronutrients can be made more available to plants by chelation, okay, with various compounds. Naturally occurring chelating agents such as citric acid. Which are the natural occurring chelating agents? Citric acid may be used, okay, as natural occurring chelating agents. Synthetic chelating agents on the national list such as lignosulfonic acid and its salts, okay. Which of the list of some chelating agent that has been listed? Synthetic chelating agent listed in national list: lignosulfonic acid and its salts, lignosulfonic acid and its salts, and humic acids are more commonly used. Synthetic chelating agents not on the national list such as EDTA and DTPA are prohibited, okay. EDTA and DTPA are prohibited except lignosulfonic acid, which is going to be used in organic sources of micronutrient management in soil. Okay, this is about management of mesonutrients and micronutrients in or the whole concept of soil management. Now we are moving to crop management. In this crop management, here we are going to manage the crops, okay, by practicing certain different types of technologies, methods which were available organically without using any of the synthetic materials or methods in organic farming, okay. Of this crop management, intercropping is going to be the first practice, okay. Intercropping is nothing but it is defined as the growth of more than one crop simultaneously in the same field during a growing season, okay. Two crops are going to be planted or cultivated simultaneously in the same field. The crops may be seeded at the time or mixed intercropping, or they may be seeded at different times or relay intercropping. Mixed intercropping is nothing but mixing of all the crops and we are going to sow in the same field. But in relay intercropping, at first we are going to start one crop. After some days of cultivating that first crop, we are going to start another crop. We are going to give hand at certain time and we are going to relay that crop. That is nothing but relay intercropping. Strip intercropping is a production system where different crops are grown in wide strips the width of a seeder in the same field, okay. And strip intercropping, by using it means in some strips we are going to follow one crop and the other strip we are going to follow another crop. We are going to maintain some practices in this strip cropping. And the next one is about row intercropping, is the cultivation of two or more crops simultaneously on the same field with a row arrangement. It means in two rows we are going to plant sugarcane and two other row we are going to plant some other crop, okay. Again two row we are going to crop sugarcane, we are going to crop, and the second crop which has been given in the first two rows rather than sugarcane. That is nothing but row intercropping, okay. This is about intercropping. Intercropping helps in conserving the soil moisture and reducing the weed loss, and soil erosion is also going to be reduced, as because all the crop without gap is going to be filled with these crops, okay. This is about the intercropping. And companion cropping. In this companion cropping, companion planting refers to the practice of planting more than one crop in the row or planting a different crop between two rows of similar crop, okay. In two rows we are going to crop means in the next rows is also going to be same crop but not as like the first crop, okay. Like that we are going to crop companionly. It is theorized that the aroma of certain plants are inhibited to some diseases or insects. How this companion crop is going to be useful in organic farming? This companion crop helps some other crops which are going to be placed there will be effects in reducing the wheat crop growth, and also pest and diseases incidence is going to be reduced as the companion crop is going to be selected according to the uses of first crop zone. Okay, companion cropping can also effectively use garden space and is particularly useful with small gardens. If companion crop is used, select companion with care to certain measures, okay, nutrients, to avoid shading or excessive competition for water and nutrients. Without any loss of this, we are going to select the companion crop. That companion crop should not be compatible with the main crop. Okay, it should give benefits to the main crop but not it affects the crop. Next one is about crop rotation. Crop rotation is the successive cultivation of different crops in specified order on the same fields. Okay, in contrast to one crop system or to appraised crop successions. Because crop rotation is a valuable management tool for organic farmers, which involves the cultivation of different crops in temporal succession on the same land, chiefly to preserve the productive capacity of the soil. Here itself, in the definition itself, it was showing to preserve the productive capacity of the soil. It means the soil fertility content, we have to preserve that without getting lost by the only one crop. Okay, it means we have to rotate the crop season to season in a successive way. Okay, because if we sow the same crop at the in every season, that crop will be uptake all the nutrients that present in the soil, and the another crop season and the same crop will not get that much amount of nutrients from that soil, as all the nutrients has been already taken by the first season crop. So that we have to rotate the crops according to the conditions and the climatic conditions, according to the soil type and that area also. Okay, usually the succeeding crop will be of different variety and species than the previous crops. If suppose if you have sown in the first season rice crop and the second season you can grow any leguminous crops, because in the nitrogen content will be required for the rice crop in huge quantity, so that the nitrogen content will be reduced in the next season crop, so that by fixing the leguminous crops in that next season, that will fix the nitrogen in that soil, and the other next season which is coming to the third season, it is you can sow the rice crop again, so that it will be balanced in the and also produce helps in productive capacity of the soil to increase. Crop rotations can be as simple as rotating between two crops and planting sequences in alternate years, or they can be more complex and involve numerous crops over several years. Not only that, crop rotations can break host cycles for pests and diseases. If the same crop has been repeated and repeated, the pest in that crop also will be repeated again and again and will lead to huge loss of yield. Okay, so that we have to follow the crop rotation in crop management. Next one is about green manures. Green manures are nothing but crops that are grown to be turned under to increase the soil fertility. Mostly leguminous green crops, those which can helpful in nitrogen fertilizers from atmospheric nitrogen, can offer small scale in farmers a tremendous number of advantages. Okay, these green manures also helps in providing large quantities of nitrogen for the soil, and it adds many tons of organic matter to the soil, thereby improving topsoil depth, water holding capacity, nutrient content, friability and texture of the soil. It also helps in present no transportation problems in contrast to compost and chemical fertilizers. It requires no capital outlay after the initial purchase of handful of seed. After purchasing the seeds, after sowing that in the fields, it requires no need of any management. Okay, we are not going to put any inputs for that. By itself it will going to produce for us, and it will be beneficial for us without any inputs. Okay, it will give more amount of output benefits. Dependency on the outside sources of fertilizer, nutrient and pesticides is reduced. It can give shade to the soil up to 11 months out of the year, a factor extremely important in tropical climates for preservation of soil moisture and organic matter. It covers the and also provide for the soil protects from wind and water erosion. It provides generous amount of high protein fodder for animals, which can be especially valuable if it is available during the last month of the dry season. It can also provide income by selling firewood, food or feed. When incorporated with basic grains, can control weeds, thereby eliminating costly weeding operations. Okay, these were the benefits of green manures. And green leaf manures, the same benefits will be given by green leaf manures here, but the green manure crops will be sown and grown in the same field itself. But green leaf manures, the leaf extract or a leaf it means the leaf residues which has been fallen off from the tree can be collected from various places and will be collected and put in the fields, and these are going to be incorporated in the fields. For example, green leaf manures, here I have given some examples of that: Cassia fistula, Louisiana Luciocephala, and Sesbania grandiflora, Coleotropis gigantea, Delonix regia, Gliricidia sepium, Pongamia glabra, Pelchophorum ferruginum, and Azadirachta indica. These are some examples of green leaf manures, and it will be helpful in many ways like green manure crops. Next, moving to cover crops. Cover crop is a crop of a specific plant that is grown primarily for the benefit of the soil rather than the crop yield. Cover crops are commonly used to suppress weeds, manage soil erosion, help build and improve soil fertility and quality, control disease and pests, and promote biodiversity. The use of cover crops can result in substantial benefits as well as be a source of unforeseen problems in organic crop production. Okay, cover crops are typically grasses or legumes but may be comprised of other green plants. Most often a cover crop is grown in the off season before the field is needed for growing the cash crop. Okay, before the cash crop, if the field will not be kept barren, we can at that time we can grow these cover crops. In a sense, a cover crop readies the land for an incoming cash crop. Okay, the examples of and not only examples, the benefits of these cover crops have a surprisingly wide array of benefits and no serious drawbacks. A cover crop can improve the health of your soil, resulting in significantly larger, healthier cash crop for the next growing season. If you see the benefits, improve biodiversity by increasing the variety of species in a given area. For example, if there are more varied insects that feed on a vegetation, it can bring more birds and so on, right? Like that we can improve the biodiversity. Reduce the amount of water that drains off a field, protecting waterways and downstream ecosystem from erosion, because each root of the cover crop creates pores in the soil. Cover crops helps allow water to filter deep into the ground. As a result, a cover crop can help conserve water and prevent soil erosion. It helps break disease cycles by reducing the amount of bacteria and fungal disease in the soil. If you have a soil that is infected, you can plant a cover crop in that area as a means to eradicate the disease. Wow, this much helpful in this cover crop is. Provide nutrients to the soil much like manure does, but they are also called living mulches because they can prevent soil erosion. Mulch is a layer of organic matter, as you know, such as crop residue that is left on the surface of the soil to prevent water runoff and protect the soil from the damaging effects of heavy rainfall. Okay, these were the benefits of cover crops. Some cover crop examples are rye, buckwheat, clover, sorghum, and hairy wheat. Next, moving to mulching. Mulching is nothing but a layer of material applied to the surface of an area of soil. Okay, the layer is going to be covered with a layer of material that may be in different forms. Okay, what that does this mulching helps? How it will be helpful? It is used to retain moisture in the soil, suppress weeds, keeps the soil cool, and make the garden bed look more attractive. Organic mulches also help improve the soil's fertility as they decompose. Types of organic mulch: some types for their bark, shredded or chipped material, compost, composted manure, grass clippings, newspaper, shredded leaves, and straw can be used as organic mulch. Organic mulch will decompose and have to replaced, but in the process it will also improve your soil fertility and its organic content. The drier and woodier the mulch, the slower it will decompose and the fewer nutrients it will give the soil. Not only that, it pays to know the origin of manure, compost, and straw, since these materials can contain viable weed seeds. The last thing you want is to spread a mulch that is going to start sprouting, okay, and make more work for you. Each type of organic mulch has its own use. You cannot say all the mulch materials will be having same amount of same type of use. Okay, each and every type of organic mulch will having its own uses. Suppose if considered as bark mulch are best used around trees, shrubs, and in garden beds where you won't be doing a lot of digging, like front walkways and foundation plantings. These woody mulches don't mix well into the soil, and it can become a hassle to keep moving them aside to make a way for new plants. They will, however, long laster than finer organic mulch. Okay, as this not easily decomposable, there is no need to add every time that we cannot. No need to add new mulches. Okay, and it will help in water conservation. Compost and next one is about compost. Compost and composted manure can be used anywhere as long as they are relatively well composted and weed free. Okay, you can use them as a coating of mulch or simply side dress plants with them during the growing season to insulate and give a boost of slowly released nutrients. You can make compost by combining food scraps, grass clippings, and other organic materials in specialized bins or tumblers. Grass clipping also can be used as organic mulch. They can get somewhat slimy with an unpleasant odor, so use with discretion. Grass clipping also tend to mat down and not allow water to pass through. Untreated grass clippings can either be dumped in your compost bin or use it to mulch open unplanted areas. Okay, so that the soil fertility will not and the soil erosion will not also reduced. Shredded leaves also can be used, are natural favorite mulch. Shredded leaves are. They can be used as mulch anywhere and have the added bonus of being free. You will also entice more earthworms to your garden soil. Some gardens don't like the look of leaves in their garden, and they probably aren't appropriate for a formal setting. If you spread a layer in that spring before plant spread out, the leaf mulch tends to blend into view within a short time. Shredded leaves are perfect for woodland gardens, and if you spread a layer over your garden land in that fall, it will begin decomposing over the winter. Unshredded leaves can mat together and repel water in rainy areas. Okay, if that happens, you can always take rag and fluff them up a bit if they appear to get matted. Okay, this is about some of the mulching material and how it will be useful in your garden areas and your fields. The benefits of mulching: mulching helps in preventing soil erosion. Mulching adds organic matter to the soil. It feeds soil life and improves soil structure. It also adds nutrient to the soil. Mulch decreases water loss due to evaporation. This was this topic about complete topic about soil and organic management in organic farming. and if you are going to practice all these practices, definitely your farm is going to be super organic farming, and you can get easily organically certification, and you can get good income from these organic farming procedures. Okay, thank you. If you are having any doubts regarding this topic, you can comment in the comment section. Thank you everyone.